Hello and welcome in. Digital Distance is a podcast that explores how people connect, interact, and form relationships through media, especially in a world where most of these interactions happen through screens. The show focuses on the gap between what feels close and what is actually distant. Each episode breaks down different aspects of digital life like parasocial relationships, online identity, influencer culture, and the emotional impact of constantly consuming content. At its core, Digital Distance is about understanding how media shapes our perception of connection. It looks at why we feel attached to creators, how platforms encourage that feeling, and what it means for our real-life relationships and sense of self. The tone is informative and reflective, helping listeners step back and think critically about their everyday media habits, without feeling overly academic or disconnected. It's meant to feel relevant and relatable, while still analyzing deeper ideas behind digital culture. Welcome in. Today's episode focuses on parasocial relationships, what they are, how they form, why they feel so real, and how they shape the way we interact with media in everyday life. A parasocial relationship is a one-sided emotional connection in which an audience member feels a sense of intimacy or familiarity with a public figure who is unaware of their existence. The term was first introduced in 1956 by sociologists Donald Hurton and Richard Wohl. At the time, they were studying television personalities and how audiences responded to them. Even in early broadcasts, viewers felt like they knew the people they watched regularly. However, what was once limited to television has now expanded across digital platforms. Today, parasocial relationships are more immersive, more interactive, and more psychologically impactful than ever before. To understand why these relationships feel so real, it's important to look at how human connection works. Humans are socially wired. We recognize faces, interpret tone, and build familiarity through repeated exposure. When someone constantly appears in our environment, even through a screen, our brain begins to categorize them as part of our social world. This is known as the mere exposure effect. The more we see someone, the more familiar and often more likable they become. Now combine that with modern content creation. Creators speak directly into the camera, they maintain eye contact, they share stories, opinions, routines, and emotions. This format closely mimics real-life interaction. Even small details like casual language, humor, or storytelling can make content feel like a conversation rather than a performance. As a result, the brain responds as if a genuine relationship is forming. To make this more concrete, consider a typical scenario. Someone starts watching a content creator casually, maybe a few short videos here and there. Over time, they begin watching more consistently. They learn the creator's personalities, habits, preferences, and opinions. Eventually, the viewer begins to anticipate how the creator will react in certain situations. They may even feel comforted just by hearing their voice or seeing their content pop up. At this point, the relationship has shifted from simple entertainment to something more personal. Even though there has been no direct interaction, the emotional experience can feel very real. Another important factor is perceived authenticity. Many creators present themselves as unfiltered or real. They may vlog their daily lives, discuss personal struggles, or share emotional experiences. This type of content encourages viewers to feel trusted, included, and emotionally connected. In some cases, creators intentionally blur the line between public and private life. They might share behind-the-scenes moments, talk about relationships, or discuss mental health openly. This can create a sense of access. Over time, audiences may begin to feel that they can understand the creator deeply, that they can predict their behavior, that they share their values or experiences. This can create a strong sense of identification. However, this connection is built on a limited and curated version of reality. Even the most authentic content is still selective. What is shown is chosen. What is edited out remains unseen. Understanding this distinction is important because it highlights the differences between perceived closeness and actual relationship. Parasocial relationships are not inherently negative. In fact, they can serve several positive functions. They can provide comfort, especially during periods of loneliness or isolation. For example, regularly watching a familiar creator can create a sense of routine and emotional stability. It can feel like checking in with someone, even though the interaction is one-sided. They can also inspire. Many people are motivated by creators who share their goals, values, or creative processes. Watching someone build a career, improve a skill, or navigate challenges can encourage viewers to pursue similar paths. Additionally, parasocial connections can help individuals explore identity. Audiences may relate to creators who share similar backgrounds, struggles, or perspectives. This can be especially meaningful for people who feel underrepresented in traditional media. In these ways, parasocial relationships can function as a supplement to real-world social interaction, not a replacement, but an addition. However, the key issue lies in boundaries. Because parasocial relationships feel emotionally real, it becomes easy to forget that they are structurally one-sided. This can lead to several misunderstandings. One example is emotional overinvestment. An audience member may feel deeply affected by a creator's personal decision, such as changes in content, relationships, or public behavior. A shift in tone or direction can feel personal, even though it is not directed at any individual viewer. Another example is perceived reciprocity. When creators speak in a conversational tone using phrases like you or we, it may feel like direct communication. But in reality, the message is to broadcast to a large audience. There is also the issue of entitlement. Some audiences feel that they deserve access to personal information or constant updates, especially if they have followed a creator for a long time. This can lead to pressure on creators to share more than they are comfortable with. These reactions highlight the central limitations of parasocial relationships. There is no mutual awareness. From a psychological standpoint, this imbalance can create tension. The audience experiences emotional closeness, while the creator maintains distance. When that distance becomes visible, such as when boundaries are enforced, it can feel like rejection, even though no personal relationships exist. This helps explain why certain moments trigger strong reactions. For example, a creator taking a break, limiting interaction, changing their content style, or choosing to keep aspects of their life private. These decisions are often necessary for the creator, but they can feel unexpected or even hurtful to the audience. This reaction is not irrational. It's a result of how the relationship is perceived. But it does highlight the importance of understanding its structure. It's also important to recognize that not all parasocial relationships are equal. Some are casual and low impact. For example, enjoying a creator's content without emotional attachment. Others are more intense and identity-based. In these cases, the creator becomes a significant part of how someone understands themselves or structures their daily routine. The intensity often depends on factors such as frequency of exposure, emotional vulnerability of the content, personal circumstances of the viewer. For example, someone going through a difficult time may form a strong connection to content that provides comfort or distraction. In today's media environment, algorithms can also create a major role. Platforms are designed to maximize engagement. They promote content that keeps viewers watching, often by reinforcing emotional connection. If someone watches a creator frequently, the platform will continue to recommend that creator's content. This increases exposure, which strengthens familiarity, which deepens the parasocial bond. This creates a cycle that viewers watch more content, feel more connected, and become more invested. Over time, this cycle can make the relationship feel increasingly significant. There is also an illusion of accessibility in modern platforms. Features like comments, likes, live streams, chats, and direct messages create the possibility of interaction. Even if a creator never responds, the ability to reach out can make the relationship feel more reciprocal than it actually is. Occasionally, a creator might reply to a comment or acknowledge a viewer. These moments, while rare, can strongly reinforce the emotional connection. They create the impression that interaction is possible. And sometimes, that it is likely. This further blurs the line between audience and relationship. At the same time, it's important to consider the creator's perspective. Managing a large audience often requires setting clear boundaries. Without them, the expectation of content accessibility can become overwhelming. Creators may choose to limit what they share, reduce interaction, or step away from platforms entirely. While these decisions are often necessary for well-being, they can conflict with audience expectations shaped by parasocial connection. This tension is a defining feature of modern digital media. Parasocial relationships are a natural response to modern media, but they require awareness. Recognizing that these connections are one-sided does not mean that they must be eliminated. Instead, it allows for a more balanced approach. One where content can be enjoyed without replacing real, mutual relationships. Understanding the structures behind these connections help maintain that balance. It allows audiences to engage thoughtfully, appreciate content for what it is, and remain aware of the boundaries that define these interactions. Most of what audiences see is a version of a person that has been shaped for an audience. It may be honest, it may be genuine, but it is still presented with intention. There are always gaps, moments that aren't recorded, thoughts that aren't shared, experiences that remain private. And yet, those gaps are often filled in by the audience. People naturally complete the picture. They assume consistency. They imagine personality beyond what is shown. Over time, this creates a version of the creator that feels complete, even though it is only partial. This is where digital distance becomes especially important. Digital distance is not about physical separation, it's about informational limitation. It's the space between what is shown and what is unknown. And in that space, interpretations happen. Sometimes that interpretation is accurate. Other times, it reflects more about the viewer than the creator. This is why awareness matters. Being aware of digital distance allows audiences to engage without overextending emotionally. It creates room to appreciate content while still recognizing its limits. It also helps reframe expectations. Instead of expecting access, audience can recognize that they are receiving is content, not a relationship. And that distinction can actually make the experience more sustainable. Because when expectations are grounded, there is less room for disappointment and more space for appreciation. At the same time, this awareness can support creators as well. When audiences understand boundaries, it reduces pressure for constant openness. It allows creators to maintain control over what they share without feeling like they are withholding something owed. This mutual understanding on both sides is what creates a healthier media environment overall. It is also worth considering how normalized these relationships have become. For many people, especially in digital native generations, interacting with media in this way is not unusual, it's expected. Following someone's life, keeping up with their content, feeling emotionally connected, these are standard parts of media now. Which means parasocial relationships are no longer an exception. They are part of structured modern media itself. And because of that, learning how to navigate them is just as important to understanding the platform we use. Ultimately, parasocial relationships are not something to avoid entirely. They are a reflection of how humans adapt to new forms of communication. But like any form of connection, they work best when they are understood clearly. In a media environment that increasingly blurs the line between public and personal, that awareness becomes more important than ever. Thank you for listening today.